FYI, I don't have 7 to go around.
That's okay.
Wheelchair.
Yeah. All right, let's go ahead and start tonight's Puyallup City Council meeting for Tuesday, September 26, 2023. It's now 6:30 p.m. And I want to welcome all who are. Oh, hello. I'd like to welcome all who are here today to join us on this great community gathering. And invite everyone to stand at this time for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, City Clerk, would you mind conducting the roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Councilmember Castema,
Present.
Councilmember King,
Present.
Councilmember Palmer,
Present.
Deputy Mayor Whitting,
Present.
Councilmember Dorr,
Present.
and Councilmember Ferris,
Present.
and Mayor Johnson.
And present. Thank you, City Clerk. Okay, Council, we have an agenda before us, items 1 through, it looks like 6. If there's no further concerns, I may entertain a motion to approve the agendas before us.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Council, we have a motion and a second to approve tonight's agendas before us. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, nay. Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, at this time, we have an opportunity to read a proclamation on behalf of a couple of fine institutions that are located within our city that provide services for many students and families and individuals. And I understand that after the reading of the proclamation, we're going to have a presentation to, is it Chio Flores, with the president of the Pierce County or Pierce College of Puyallup. And we have Mr. Todd Murray here as well from the WSU Puyallup Research and Extension Center Director. And so we'll have a chance to present that to them afterwards. And I think there might be a couple of just very casual comments after the proclamation that might make mention of some upcoming events that are coming on. So we'll allow some latitude for that if the council is so inclined. So now I'll read this proclamation on behalf of the council and on behalf of the city of Puyallup. Whereas colleges and universities offer post-secondary learning research opportunities, internships, and career counselings. And whereas the city of Puyallup is fortunate, and I'll say very fortunate, to have 2 post-secondary educational institutions, namely Washington State's University Puyallup Research and Extension Center in the Valley and Pierce College Puyallup on the South Hill. And whereas thousands of WSU and Pierce College alumni enjoy satisfying careers and contribute immeasurably to the social and economic fabrics of their communities. And whereas WSU's Puyallup Research and Extension Center has, since 1984, developed and furthered technological innovation, food production, and natural resource stewardship. And whereas the WSU Puyallup Rec is home to more than 20 research and extension programs, working to support and grow local communities, watersheds, landscapes, and farms. And whereas Pierce College Puyallup serves 4,500 students annually and has won numerous national awards, not just awards, but national awards and accolades as a high-performing institution committed to the success of its students, and I might even add its community. Whereas Pierce College Puyallup drives economic and community development by collaborating with employers to address current and future workforce educational needs. Now, therefore, I, Dean Johnson, Mayor of the City of Puyallup, Washington, do hereby encourage all citizens to join me in recognizing and celebrating the tremendous impacts that these vital institutions have on our community. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Puyallup to be affixed this 26th day of September 2023. And at this time, I'd like to ask if Mr. Murray and Ms. Flores could join me in the presentation, and if we could give them a hand as they're coming up, please. Thank you so much. So let's get right up here. Hello, Ms. Flores. How are you? Nice to meet you. Please come on up. Yeah. So on behalf of the Puyallup City Council, we want to thank you for your institutions of higher learning. And thank you that not only what you have done since 1984 and since probably quite a few decades ago, but what you're doing now, and then really more importantly, what you're going to do in the future. And I think that's the exciting thing is we appreciate our history, we value our present, but we look forward to the future of these institutions really bringing forth great opportunities for our citizens and for students who come and want to learn and contribute back to our community. So on behalf of the Puyallup City Council and the City of Puyallup, I want to present this to you and thank you for your stewardship to the community. We're there. All right. Did you guys want to say a few words? You're certainly welcome to.
Sure.
Please go to the dais and say a couple words and thank you. Yes. Let's get the mic turned on. Thank you. There we go. Thank you.
Very pleased to be here tonight. I'm also joined by Chancellor Julie White, who oversees the Pierce College District. For those who may not know, we also have a campus at Fort Skillicum in Lakewood. And so very pleased to be here. This is my 4th month. Very new to the area, just took the presidency June 1st. And so when I was approached actually by Dan Vessels, I should say, to be a part of this, I was very excited. And then to be alongside Washington State University, even more pleased. We are your college, we hope, of choice. We are here, have been here for many years, and are really eager to support economic development, but then also serve our students, our residents of Puyallup and beyond, but really interested in being a part of the activities that are, and I think we're going to talk about that soon next week. So thank you for having us, and I'll hand it down to my colleague here from Washington State University now.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dean, Mayor Dean Johnson and the City of Puyallup for your support and for the special relationship the city shares with WSU and my college in particular. And with that, I'd like to read a few words from our Dean, Wendy Powers, who will be here during the event coming up in the next couple of weekends. But on behalf of Washington State University, the College of Agriculture, Human and Natural Resource Sciences, and the Puyallup Research and Extension Center, I would like to take this opportunity to thank Steve and his team, the mayor and the city council members, and the Puyallup community for recognizing their strong partnership that exists between our institute and the local communities throughout the state of Washington. Nowhere is it more evident than at Puyallup. Opening in 1894, the Puyallup Research and Extension Center is the first and longest serving center in WSU's portfolio. We're only like a couple of years younger than the main campus. So we've been here for a long time, working with you as our partner. And as a testament to the strong support and partnership with the Puyallup community. I know a number of you have sat through my lectures of what a land grant is and what a land grant mission is, and we can't fulfill that mission without a strong partnership with the communities that we work in. So we really appreciate the interaction and the relationship that we have with the city. It's an unusual relationship. And I know a lot of my colleagues that are in a similar position in mine would love to enjoy the relationship that we have here with the city. And we couldn't do this important work without the kind support that the communities have, like Puyallup provide. This week's celebration of WSU and Pierce College is truly a celebration of community partnership. It is what gives our work its deepest meaning and where we find our greatest success. And so we're thrilled for our 4th annual tailgate event on October 7th and hope you all can join us to celebrate the end of another wonderful City of Puyallup's College Appreciation Week. And we look forward to those that can join Dean Powers about 1 hour prior to kickoff, which is, they just announced a kickoff at noon on Saturday. So look forward to seeing you all there. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. And I think I speak on at least probably all the council. We appreciate both institutions and what you do for our region, and we're grateful to have both of you here. And speaking personally, and I think many of them here, whatever we can do to help you advance your vision and expand it in ways that are tangibly seen, measurably seen and felt, not just in token with a sign out front and these proclamations, which are wonderful, but really in tangible, measurable ways, we want to advocate to help you advance. Why? Because we like you? Well, not necessarily, although we do, but because we believe in what you're doing, and that mission is super important. So that's why I think it's we want to advance and see our community grow. So whatever we can do, you let us know. And thank you so much. We honor you this month and always. Okay, now we're going to, Council, we're going to move on to citizens' comments. This is an opportunity for free speech in our country. We still have that. And so if you'd like to speak, there's some flyers that are, as you come in, some yellow flyers. If you haven't filled one out and like to speak tonight, I'll be addressing those folks who fill one out. It's not too late now, and our city clerk there can take those. And so please fill one out. And before we get started, I wanted to turn to our city clerk, and she's going to read some reminders that we certainly appreciate free speech, but we also believe there's a culture of respect and decorum. And so we're going to ask her to read some guidelines and appreciate your response to that.
Please note that per state law, this public comment period cannot be used to speak in support of or in opposition to a ballot measure or individual candidacy, and no such comments will be allowed.
Thank you. And I would also include in past history that if you have some concerns with various council members, share your concerns to the entire council and not identify them and single people out, just out of respect and decorum. Thank you so much. Okay, great. For the first person we have to speak, Paul Romich. Paul, I've got to get this. Help me with it. Romich, I've got to get this. Paul Romich. He's a regular speaker. I got to get this down. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Mayor Johnson.
Yeah.
Don't really have much of a structure today, so but I do want to commend the city on acquiring another piece of land to add to our collection of wonderful parks. I understand that, you know, we're hopefully going to designate this as an open space, and that the overall long-term goal for this is actually just to build a trail through it, which would, you know, minimal impact, but also create connectivity for people in the valley into Wildwood Park. And very excited about that. But just kind of want to consider things in about connectivity as a whole. We can't, you know, we currently use, you know, our multi-use trails, and they're frequently used as bike infrastructure or walkability infrastructure, and pleasant places people can use to get around safely without requiring a car. And that's how we have it structured currently. It's very disjointed. So if we, you know, as we go through the comprehensive planning process, this is a good time for everyone to kind of, you know, departments that cross lines and kind of be like, okay, it would be cool if, you know, from a transportation perspective, if we leverage this trail in this way, and you know, and it would also enhance the tourism aspect of the city because it would help better showcase off our parks. So things we can do to do that is like increase wayfinding along these trails or between the trails to points of interest around the city, and or to other trails in general, right? If we kind of create, you know, more structured routes to connect the trails, it would create a more thorough network, which, you know, people can feel safer on, as well as, you know, give areas of priority to, you know, develop things or infrastructure in general. And that infrastructure is very vague, but that can be anything from, you know, street, you know, focusing our street tree program there, or, you know, adding benches or other things to encourage, you know, those, not everyone can walk a mile without, you know, taking a breather. So just the minor things, little things about the structure of everything can really influence the overall impact that, you know, this acquisition can have, as well as increase the accessibility of the park to everyone in the city. That's all I have, I guess. So thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Okay, next we have Mr. Dave Churchman, please.
Day Church from District 2. It's conker season. For those of you who don't know what conkers are, they are chestnuts. Hundreds of thousands of kids, if not millions of kids across the world play with these things every season. It's great to play with, but not in Puyallup. As many of you probably know, that's over at Stewart Elementary. A chestnut tree, 100-year-old tree over there got chopped down because not just the kids, the teachers, they put fear that they were going to die because of these conkers and chestnut trees. Reason I bring it to you is City Hall, in fact, the gentleman over here, he signed off on removing the tree, cutting it down because it was on the preservation list. And just like that, it was removed and the tree was chopped down. The News Tribune has made a mockery of it. It's ridiculing the school district. And I now hear that European media have picked up on it. And it's a mess. It's a farce. There should have been more city interaction over something as stupid as that. It really is bad. Next month is property tax season payment again, second half. I would encourage people to go online, since most people don't get the statement, and look at how much of your taxes go to support Central Pierce. About 10, 12 years ago, when Rick Hansen was on the council, we were told that when Central Pierce took over from City of Puyallup, the rates would be a push. Well, since then, they've gone up 4 times. Houses basically don't catch fire anymore. We don't have fireplaces. We don't smoke. People don't cook meth in their bathtubs. We don't have shake roofs. Most of the fires in this town are businesses, schools, churches, fish plants out there, laundrettes, roller skating rinks, so on. So in many ways, homeowners are subsidizing the businesses. One of the things we was told when we were sold this bill of goods, we will get free ambulance rides to multicare. Well, that's a bunch of garbage. I don't know how many of you have been taken off to multicare. They bill your insurance $2,000. So that's bogus. So I would encourage taxpayers, look at your property tax bill that you're paying next month and look where your money's going. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Churchman. Before we call on the next citizen comment, I just wanted to state kind of interesting, because I'm glancing out in the audience and the dais here. You know, one of the great things about Puyallup is that, you know, I don't think you would find this in other municipalities, but here in this room, there are 5 mayors in this room, mayors of Puyallup. It's kind of neat. They're still involved. We haven't ran them out of town, but it's kind of neat to show that we have people that care, and of course constituents who are here too. But it's just kind of neat to see that the history that we have and the involvement that we all share together as constituents and public servants. So, well, next I'll call upon former Mayor John Hopkins to come and share some insight and wisdom and all kinds of fun stuff. Mayor.
There. John Hopkins, District 1. This is the 3rd installment of permits in Puyallup, and this time I'm going to focus on code required upgrades. Okay, these can be deal killers. As we saw with Caitlin, she didn't proceed with her project because of the sampling tea. What is the sampling tea? I know 3 of you know what it is because I've told you. I didn't know what it was until I got my building plans back, you know, when I was applying for a permit. We will not review your plans until you get a permit for a sampling tea. Lovely. What's a sampling tea? We will not give you occupancy until you actually put in a sampling tea. I still don't know what they're talking about. So I find out what a sampling tea is. Really easy to get a permit. It's a fitting that you put in your sewer pipe that runs out to the street so that the city can test what you're putting into the system. Fair enough. Super easy on new construction, but existing construction, well, the first quote I got was for $10,000. In the end, it turned out to be $31,000 because I had to change my pipe from the building to the street. $31,000. Now, where did this thing come from? Whose idea was this? Apparently, in 2009 or something like that, it was put on the books before your time, before my time. It was put on the books. Decided it's time to enact this thing. Brilliant move. Okay, I did it because, well, I can't wait for for them to give me a waiver on the thing. Although apparently they have given other people waivers. I'm losing $7,000 a month. So yeah, basically I was forced into doing it. $31,000 later, I did it. Okay. Turns out some people have been given waivers. Some people have been allowed to continue review of their building plans. Now here's the thing that I just love. I get a nice little letter from the city. Oh, by the way, about that sampling tea that you installed, that we have signed off on. They didn't say that, but they should have known that they'd signed off on it. You don't have to do it anymore. Brilliant. So $31,000 later, it appears that there's only 2 people in the city that I'm aware of who's been stuck with this bill. I'm one of them. Lazy Ballerina is the other that I know of. And that's why they were spitting bullets when I talked to them. Now I know. So there you go. Bingo. Done. 0-0.
Thank you, Mayor Hopkins. And since we're on a roll, I think I'm going to call upon former Mayor, Mr. Rick Hansen, please. Couple of mayors in a row. Mr. Hansen, good to see you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council, staff, city manager. Sorry about that. That was not a happy story. I'm here to really talk about Clark's Creek. You people all know that pretty well, I suspect. I had a handout of an email I sent to your city manager, and I have some pictures I took of our property. We're faced today basically with the flooding that we get in the worst of times in the dead of winter. And we just are getting winter's arrival. And I know that the river's going to peak in a couple of days. I don't know how much that's going to do to what exists, but there's flooding all along the river, along the creek. And it's caused by many different things. Certainly Meeker Creek, which was to move water from the fair, became a flow of water off the hill. It's now called a creek, and it now sends lots of water down into Clark's Creek. The LODA was not removed. I understand you have a plan. I hope you approve it to do something as immediate as you can. I understand you're in talks with other organizations as to what to do. But I can remember in 2012, I met with Como TV and a bunch of other people down at Wright's property in Clark Creek 2. And it was horrible. Well, we've reached that point again, only it's not in the dead of winter. And I hate to wonder what's going to happen. I do have a home on the creek. I'm fortunate. I'm much higher, but I've got neighbors that are really suffering. The suffering isn't just from the flooding of water sitting on and taking some of your land away. It's knocking trees over. It's taking old trees that have been there for a long time. And apparently the city is cleaning up one of those that fell farther upstream from me. We have all kinds of silt that continues to build up, and it continues to come down because we haven't done anything about the silt. We have kind of an unusual part to this is right across from me at the Washington Extension Center is a breeding ground for geese. And they come back every year and they have 8 or 9 little geese, and they're really cute to look at. But you probably know that they poop about 2 pounds a day. Well, I don't know how much of that goes into the creek, but I'm just saying there's another piece that raises that. I know that you're in talks to remove LODA, but I think you really need to look at removing silt and leaving the gravel. And if we had been working on that years ago when we started doing some of this, we would have a really, really great place for fish to spawn. And it's not that difficult to take a vacuum to go underwater, and you can actually do it all underwater, but to take it and bring it onto shore or onto some surface, even if it's in our yards, or put it at some of the farms. If you can bring up that silt, it can do wonders for everything that goes in that creek. But you've got to do something. And when I look at where it is today, it hasn't changed from the pictures I saw in 2012. We also have beaver in there. I don't know if you know that. They actually take our trees down. And so we have to, one of the pictures, you're going to see a bunch of wire around a big tree. Well, I've got a tree bigger than that has a chunk out like this that I caught it in time. It's a weeping willow that it would have been gone in a couple more days. And that would have clogged the creek. And then we're not allowed to cut anything in the creek. And so that would have caused more water to get higher because we can't cut anything if it falls in the creek. So there's a lot of pieces to it. But I think the simple one is to do what you were going to do all along, which you didn't do this year, but also really look seriously at removing silt, which could really solve a lot of the problem. Thank you for your time.
Very good. Thank you, Mayor Hansen. Okay, I think next to speak on a similar subject is Mr. James Prosick.
Yeah, thank you. I also live on Clark's Creek. Our property's at 1928 Fifth Avenue Southwest, and it's been flooded for several months. The severity has increased quite a bit here lately, so the majority of our lower lawn is now underwater, and the ducks are swimming out there. My concerns are also for trees. We planted a whole series of trees across the front to try to work with the city to provide shade for reduction of the elodea and also for the salmon habitat. And our neighbor's tree, which is the one I think that's on the council agenda here today, has fallen across. They had a large oak tree that fell across, and we're worried we're going to lose our trees now, which kind of puts the whole thing in jeopardy as far as the preventative measures that we're trying to take. And I've been on the creek for over 20 years, and every time we've delayed these cuttings, this has occurred. So it's a pretty known factor for folks that live on the creek that if you don't cut the elodea, we're going to have a problem. And hoping that the winter's not going to be too bad. And I want the council, I'm asking for the council to support the emergency measure to cut the elodea. And I'm in agreement that the silt is the baseline problem, and removal of the silt will help us both on the flooding potential and also on making the creek a better habitat for the salmon. So again, I hope the council will support the emergency cutting of the elodea, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Prosick. And then I want to cue up our city manager, and maybe after our last citizens' comments, which I'll call upon. Maybe Steve, if unless council has a concern, maybe you could, we're going to discuss this on one of the bullet points. Maybe it could just give a very brief synopsis on what we're going to be discussing tonight in case of the LODs. So in case they leave, they at least get an idea. Just a quick one. Okay, next we have Mrs. Prosick, Georgia Prosick.
Hello. Well, I concur. Let's cut the weeds ASAP. Many people on the creek are flooded. But a little history, we have been cutting the weeds for 32 years. In today's dollars, that's $7 million we spent cutting alone. That's not counting all the millions that people have spent on study after study after study. And I have copies of them if anybody wants to see them. We just need to get the silt out. We have 6 or 7 feet of silt in many, many places. It can be done in a 3-step process, a 2-step process, or all at once, but let's get it out. The tribe wants it out. They're willing to work with you if we can get the city to agree. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Steve, would you mind just a quick comment? I know we're going to discuss it, maybe just a little taster, a tease, just kind of let us know that we're going to be addressing this, and we certainly hear these comments.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Stephanie. So on the consent agenda for you today is an item that doesn't require discussion, though certainly you can pull it and discuss it if you'd like. But let me just provide some background. The city today, I signed a declaration of imminent danger that is required for us to seek an emergency permit through the Washington Fish and Wildlife Department, State Department. That is required for us to obtain a permit. Typically, there is a longer process that we would have to go through, but based on what we are seeing out on the creek, by the Prossick's home, the Hanson's home, more specifically the 7th Avenue Bridge by Clark's Creek, we have data and pictures to show that the creek is almost close to 6 inches from the bridge deck, which is very concerning to us from an infrastructure standpoint and a surrounding property owner standpoint. So based on this data and our gauge that we are monitoring, that is water height data that is monitored by the U.S. Geological Service at Tacoma Road. So we've been monitoring that. And with the recent rains that we've seen and the predictions of a wet winter, a warm winter, but a wet winter, we have very real concerns. And so that is why we have signed this declaration tonight. If you approve the item on the consent agenda, we have a company that will be able to mobilize in October and take about 3 weeks or so to go down about 16,000 feet of the creek and remove the Ilodia. They'll be cutting it as opposed to pulling it. And we are also working with Pierce County because a portion of this is also within Pierce County, a large portion is. And so we are partnering with them to have this done.
Thank you. Thank you, City Manager. I hope that helps address some of these, just at least you understand that we're certainly on that. So as we kind of conclude citizens' comments, I do want to turn to those who are joining us via Zoom. There's a couple of folks who have joined. If you would like to speak, there may be a hand icon or something that would indicate you'd like to speak. I'm certainly happy to open that up to you if you had a few words that you wanted to join us. Okay, don't see any. So before closing up citizens' comments, I'd like to take a moment to once again thank everyone who is here today, every constituent, every staff member, every education center, every former mayor who's in this room. I want to honor all of you, and it's fantastic. And then for those of you, as we go into the second part of the meeting, if you're guests here and you're obligated to stay, so if you want to sneak out, we're not going to be offended. But thank you for being here. So appreciate that. Okay, Council, we're going to move on to the consent agenda. Item number 3. We have items 3A through looks like 3I. And then Council, unless you had any concerns about any of the items on the consent agenda, I might entertain that we approve the consent agenda as stated before us.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, Council, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda, items 3A through 3I. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, nay. Motion passes. I'll take care of that Ilodia issue. Thank you, Council. Council, we also have an ordinance 4A. It's a second reading of an ordinance pertaining to the use of public right-of-way for work involving excavations in the right-of-way. I know that we've already had a presentation on this. So Council, unless you had any further questions for the second reading that would hinder this moving forward, I might entertain a motion to approve the second reading.
Move approval.
Okay, Council, we have a motion and a second to approve the second reading 4A as before us. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, nay. Okay, Council, motion passes. City Clerk, I might ask for a reading of the Council. Roll call.
Councilmember King.
Aye.
Councilmember Palmer.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Whitting.
Aye.
Berdor.
Aye.
Councilmember Ferris.
Aye.
Councilmember Castema.
Aye.
Mayor Johnson.
Aye. Thank you, Council. Motion passes unanimous. Council, before us on 4B, we have a first reading of an ordinance amending the code 6.10.085 of the Puyallup Municipal Code pertaining to solid waste collection service tax. I understand there's there might be some presentation if we had any questions. I know city manager spoke with each of us probably in our weekly meeting with him. If there's any questions, certainly want to be open to that before we move into entertaining this. I might just add for clarity, if I recall right, city manager, this is kind of a housekeeping measure. This is not any kind of a new tax increase, just so it's not, I want to make sure it's clear the audience or the constituents know this is not an increased tax. This is a housekeeping. Could we clarify that just for the record to make sure that people understand what's going on here?
Yeah, yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And the Finance Director, Barbara Lopez, is available, but I can address it. It is fairly straightforward. There are two provisions in our code. As Barbara and staff were going through the code, I shouldn't say stumbled, came across a provision in the code that references the tax that we charge on private utilities, cable companies, gas companies, et cetera. It has two separate areas in the code. And so it's just cleaning that up. So that's referenced only in one area of the code. So that's what this ordinance does.
Okay. And then Finance Director Barbara, it's basically taking two mentions and they're bringing it into one. So this is not a new additional tax, not an increased tax. We're just kind of merging these into one area in the code book. Can we clarify, just reiterate that?
Absolutely, Mayor Johnson. Barbara Lopez, Finance Director. It specifically states differing taxes amount, different percentages for the same tax in two different places in our code.
Oh,
So what we're doing is we're taking one spot and we're telling it to reference the other spot
gotcha.
instead when it determines what that rate is.
So it's a point of clarity.
It's a point of clarification.
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you so much. So it's a housekeeping issue, council. But again, I think it was good for us to, publicly mention this is not a tax increase and so forth, because it has the word tax in there. Sometimes people, they see that and they go, whoa. So thanks for that clarity, Finance Director Barbara and City Manager Steve. Council, if there's any concerns or further questions, I'm certainly open, but if not, I might entertain a motion to pass the first reading 4B as mentioned before us.
Mr. Mayor, I move approval of first reading of this ordinance.
Okay.
Second.
All right, council, we have a motion and a second to approve the first reading of 4B as stated before us. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 And those opposed, nay. Motion passes. Thank you, council. Council, we have a 4C. It's a first reading of an ordinance amending and adopting a code provisions related to latecomer reimbursement contracts. It might be just okay to have a quick presentation on this. So I'll turn to our city attorney, Mr. Joe Beck, who will give us a riveting presentation on this first reading.
Well, it is an item that is of interest to some people, developers and such. And I do think it's something, it's a significant change in our code. So I think it's worthwhile just walking through it very briefly. I'm Joe Beck, city attorney, and thank you, Mayor, for allowing me to present this item. So a latecomer reimbursement agreement is a mechanism whereby, generally speaking, a developer who is required to build facilities in excess of what their property exactly needs can request a contract with the city whereby the city then assesses new development, other parcels that develop later, a set amount that they know, that everybody knows about ahead of time. It's spelled out once the latecomer agreement is established. And it helps a developer, it does two things. It helps a developer to recoup expenses over and above that they need to expend over and above what directly benefits their property. And then the other thing it does is it incentivizes developers to actually build facilities that are necessary while they're developing their property. So if we didn't have this in some situations, you might be waiting for a development to happen and facilities to get built if we didn't have this mechanism. We first adopted our latecomer reimbursement ordinances around 1994, 1995, and they have essentially not been touched since that time. In the meantime, the state legislature has amended the latecomer statutes. And so we've been out of phase with state law for some time now. And so what this does first and foremost is it allows us to get into alignment with state law. And it consolidates some provisions so that they are in two sections. One section is street latecomer reimbursement agreements, and the other section is utility latecomer reimbursement agreements. So water, sewer, storm latecomer reimbursement agreements. And the RCWs are different, so we do need to have two different code sections to deal with these different types of latecomer agreements. So the number one thing it does is it brings us in line with state law. The second thing that it does is it allows us to take advantage of some provisions in state law that have been added that allow cities to set up reimbursement areas under latecomer reimbursement areas on their own. So there's two ways the city can get involved. We can either partner with developers and invest in facilities along with a developer, and then we become eligible to be reimbursed when those assessments are paid by later development. And that's a traditional latecomer reimbursement contract that the city just participates in. So that's one thing, and we're clarifying and making sure that's clear in these code sections. Then the other thing that's newer is that we can actually, as a city, set up a latecomer reimbursement area on our own initiative, pay for the cost of the facilities up front, and then recoup some of the cost as property develops or redevelops. And I believe Hans Hunger, the city engineer, spoke to you a few meetings back when I wasn't here, and talked about the potential for a reimbursement area in the downtown for stormwater to incentivize development in our downtown. Well, this would be the mechanism that we would use to set up that reimbursement area. So that's part of the urgency of getting this passed. We need to get this passed so that we can have what the infrastructure in place to go ahead and have the opportunity to set up that reimbursement area that Hans talked to you about. This doesn't set it up. It just puts the framework in place for us to come back and then talk about what that's going to look like. So this is a first step for that. And I believe that's the framework of what we're doing tonight. I'm happy to answer specific questions. If you saw something in there that puzzled you or you think is important to draw out, I'm happy to answer those questions or try to.
Thank you, Mr. Beck. Are there any precedents of other municipalities who have done something similar to this? Is there any precedents that you know of? I mean, short of doing the research, but just off the cuff.
Virtually every other city has this.
Okay.
I reviewed numerous examples from other cities in crafting this one to make sure that I was in phase with what other cities have drafted and put out there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, ours is unique to Puyallup. It's not exactly like anybody else's, but it is similar, very similar to what other cities have adopted.
Okay, thank you. Council, any other further comments before we consider a motion? All right, short of that, I might consider a motion to pass or consider first reading of 4C.
Move approval.
Second.
Thank you. Council, we have a motion and a second to move approval of the first reading as mentioned in 4C as presented to us by our city attorney, Mr. Joe Beck. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, nay. Thank you, council. Motion passes. Before us, we're moving right along. We're at resolution 5A. It's an application to classify 2.264 acres at 820 17th Avenue Southwest as open space. And I did hear a little bit about this from our city manager earlier in our meeting today. And I understand that our development and permitting services director, Jeff Wilson, will give us some background and introduction on this resolution for us to consider and perhaps see if it's something that we want to entertain.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Jeff Wilson, Director of Development and Permitting Services. And I'm presenting tonight on behalf of Kendall. She had put together this package in terms of the material before you. So I'll run through a brief presentation, be happy to answer any questions you have on the process. Essentially, this is an open space, special open space taxation valuation. It's a process that is run through counties. I actually did this when I was in Chelan County. We managed the program in terms of coming through. But it allows for special valuation of properties to property owners to get a reduced rate on property tax if they keep their property in certain states or certain ones such as farmlands, mining is other area, forestry areas or in other areas. And it's basically preserving certain resources that we have of the state. So they provide an incentive to do a reduced taxation on that portion of property if you are going to keep it in that state for a period of time. In this case, it's 10 years. And that is, again, to incentivize retaining these valuable resources for the state. It's processed through the county. The county adopts adopts approval, and then they go to the local jurisdiction where that property is located to basically ask for your approval or consent or affirmation of their decision to provide the special tax valuation on the property. This property specifically is located at 820 17th Avenue Southwest. There are two parcels. It's owned by the Wicklanders, both Paul and Edward, and combined it's about just a little over 2.5 acres, of which they're looking to keep just a little about 2.25 of it in that eligible for the open space current use assessment. The properties contain streams, wetlands, aquifer recharge areas, landslide hazard areas as part of it. And then there's a portion of one of the parcels that has a single family residence on it. And we have an aerial that'll show you that property as a better reference. And I think that's on the next slide. Yes, it is. So you can see the area on the map that's identified in blue, shaded in blue. You see the house in the very upper right-hand corner of that property. And it's the rest of the property, again, about 2.25 acres that they want to leave in that natural state in which they've applied for that special tax valuation on it. There's some different views of that property. You can see there that there's, if you look at the photo in the top left corner, it's hilly, it's rolling areas. There are areas that it's kind of forested. You see that in the bottom right corner where there's some heavily forested portions of that property. So you see it's not really prime for development. You don't necessarily want to see these sort of areas because it does contain a number of different natural features and what we would call environmentally sensitive areas that we want to preserve and retain. So the non-qualifying areas is about 1/3 of an acre of the total 2.5 acres. So 2.262 acres are what are eligible. There are criteria that the county has to look at. There's a point rating system that you go through on each one of these parcels to see if it adds up and accumulates enough of the points to be eligible for that special tax valuation. There are a maximum of 15 points. There's some bonus points if it's a designated urban area, and there's some additional bonus points if it provides linkages to other open space parcels. The total tax valuation reduction, again, this is the reduction on the open space area, is about $4,000 on an annual basis over the next 10 years. The residential portion of it, that 1/3 of an acre, will be taxed as a single family residence. The other is just going to be left as open space, and we'd be taxed at that open space rate versus as a developable land under the single family rate. You can see again, this is kind of a blow up of the 1/3 of an acre that would be excluded. It contains the existing single family parcel on there. You can see it's very heavily concentrated in that one corner of the properties. Pierce County Council held their public hearing on August 8th. They passed their ordinance 2023-26 approving that request. And now they have passed that on to you members of the council here for your affirmation of that decision. In which case, if it is approved, then they would work with the assessor's office to make the appropriate designations on the property. So that, I think, briefly concludes the presentation. But again, it's that special valuation to look at retaining 2/3 of that property, or just a little over 2.25 acres of the 2.5 acres as open space, and then have a reduced property valuation on that and taxing on that.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Councilmember Castema.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. How much of the property of that acreage is actually developable?
We didn't do an assessment on that. That's not something that we have done or they would do. They have not put in a proposal, so we wouldn't go through and evaluate that. We just received the evaluation and the point criteria that the county has to go through that are stipulated for the statutes that provide that special valuation. So I can't give you an estimate about if it's 1/3, if it's half or part of it. There are going to be some constraints because of areas that we've identified as being some steep slopes and some stream. How much of that is going to be taken out and what kind of buffer areas might be in there, I couldn't tell you because that assessment was not done.
Well, my comment, the genesis of my comment comes from the fact that just this last meeting prior to this one, we heard how that in fact, normal parcels are all going to be cut in half because of the new mandatory elimination of single family zoning. And then with the ADU requirement, you could put 2 ADUs on every lot, which would equate to 4 ADUs on a single family lot that currently exists in Puyallup, correct?
We think the minimum is going to be 3 that they could get on any parcel.
My point is that here we are, this last meeting, talking about the destruction of neighborhoods in Puyallup because they're all being divided into tiny little, lots. And the state legislature has no problem with that. No policymakers other than maybe this council is irate that the legislature would intervene on that level. And yet here we're saying that we're going to set aside lots of acreage. I think it's quite, I'm trying to rectify the contrary nature of that, in that you're asking all of the people here to bear the brunt of this growth. And the same, the next meeting, now you're asking us to take all this open space, which we haven't even done an analysis of whether or not it can accommodate more growth, where unless a person makes that application. But the Pierce County's already approved it. And now you're asking our approval. It just seems too contrary. And frankly, I have to think about this. You're asking people in other areas to make tremendous sacrifices, destroy the value of their property, or minimize what could be a more valuable piece of property in the neighborhoods. And yet someone else is able just to set aside acreage that could potentially be developable. You don't know, haven't done the analysis, and they get a tax break. So I'm trying to square that one right now. And I certainly am not willing to take action until I can frankly square that circle this evening. Thank you.
Councilmember Castro, I don't have the answer, nowhere being a professional in development, land development. But if I recall right, I remember seeing that I know that one cleared area toward the north, it's literally a deep gully. It's not even close to a flat land. You'd have to fill in so many tons of fill in there that it wouldn't be funny. And I would imagine that the property that's treated is probably the same area. So I've got to think that the probability of development is very, very low threshold of probability without major impact concerns, environmental concerns.
Well, if Mr. Mayor, if I can respond, and hopefully this will answer some of your questions, Councilmember Casma. I mean, this provision or this opportunity is something that state legislature has adopted and was adopted. I've been aware of it for at least the last 15 years. It's been on the books, and it's looking at preserving areas that have natural features. And again, there's a rating system that you have to go through to qualify those points, see if the property is eligible under those criteria that are set out by statute. And that's in it, because the county does the property taxation, it goes through the county. So they have to weigh it against those criteria to figure out whether or not it meets minimum threshold on the points as land eligible for this consideration. Whether or not the land may be developed, there are plenty of properties, and this is my experience in Chelan County, where we had plenty of properties that the land was developable and it could have been fully developed, but they wanted to preserve it either as forested areas or other areas that are left in a natural area, which is part of what we want to look for, which is trying to retain and preserve these areas as much as possible, not develop every square inch and have the opportunity to preserve some of these unique areas. That's why this program was set in place, was to give an incentive to property owners to not fully develop their properties if that land met the point system and be eligible for that reduction in the property taxes in order to be able to preserve those areas. So
go ahead.
My only comment is all of those rules that you just said, the legislature has no problem throwing everything out prior. The world has changed according to them and according to what they have done to the populace. So I could give you that same sort of rationale as to why all the neighborhoods should be preserved, et cetera. And just because they left this one out, I have to take into account all of these factors in apparently providing enough housing to meet the Growth Management Act and do our development plan that we're required to do. All of those factors have to be taken into account. So the fact that someone may qualify for this doesn't negate the fact that that property could, because you don't know, there's been no assessment that's been made, nothing professional whatsoever, also provide needed housing. So that's why, again, it's a very contradictory move, in my opinion, regardless of the fact that they meet that other criteria, because they may well, with all that criteria, still be able to accommodate development. We don't know. No assessment has been done. So in other words, I know you're looking at me curious, the meeting the criteria does not negate the fact that it is developable.
Well, and
I get it.
yeah, I
get it.
never said that that does negate the fact. I mean, part of it was to encourage people not to fully develop their
I
lands.
get it,
Yeah.
but all I'm saying, it's very contradictory in the sense that you've now mandated way above density in other areas. So I think under those circumstances, I have a jaundiced eye towards it.
I certainly understand that.
Thank you. Councilmember King.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Sure.
Regarding this new or reduced tax, at the time of, if this property were to sell, like other parcels that are labeled as maybe farm or what have you, and they were wanting to in turn develop this down the road, would there be any tax implications of paying back taxes on this property at the time of the sale if they were to, or change the zoning requirement on to redevelop it?
I understand what you're asking as a question. I don't know specifically. My recollection is that you basically have that on your property and it is recorded on the property and stays that way for a 10-year period of time. If you wish to look to remove it from that, there may be provisions where they may either have to pay back taxes, or
you too.
If they, it's a tongue twister tonight. Or at that point in time, they remove the designation and the land is then taxed at the fair market value for as developable land. But at this, at this point, it's to, the encouragement is not to, therefore we're giving you a break, but you have an obligation, you're getting a 10-year break on that. And, they're likely to reduce that. There are always provisions to pull property out, never quite as easy as going in sometimes if you get into that process. So there will be some implications. I can't tell you exactly what they are under the statute. I didn't read that portion of it before this evening, so my apologies on that. But it's not, they don't just get to make that decision and sell it as developable land with this on the constraint on the property.
Yeah, that was my only big concern on the implications of if the property owner or is interested or knows of those instances potentially. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Councilmember Palmer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, thank you for this presentation. I support moving forward on this tonight. This is basically green infrastructure. This is important to maintaining the hydrology of this creek. And this is going directly into Clark's Creek. And we we're just talking about flooding in Clark's Creek. So it is a direct connection here. And so this is why preserving this type of land is really important, because it's serving a function to the greater good in terms of the Clark Creek and the stream. It prevents flooding. And so, and looking at this property, that creek goes right through that. It's, it may be possible to develop the southeast piece of this, perhaps, that's away from the creek maybe, but I would say 3/4 of this couldn't be developed probably if you looked into it, just because it's going to be protected anyway. So this makes sense. It meets the criteria. I do understand what Councilmember Casma said. There is a tension. We do have provisions to protect lands. It's particularly, wetlands and streams and that sort of thing. And we're also trying, as a general matter, and I'm not defending the state, most recent stuff, but as a general matter, we're putting density, we're increasing density where we can. So yeah, there's a little bit of a tension there, but I think you have to be able to do both. You can't throw density all over your best green infrastructure. So it's just the way it is. And so I think, there is a little bit of that tension, but in this case, it clearly meets this criteria, and I think it serves a valuable function for Puyallup. So it makes sense to me.
Mr. Mayor, if
Yes.
I might for just a moment, just to respond back to Councilmember King's question, because I scanned real quickly through the county staff report, and there actually is additional taxes and penalties if they remove the property out. It's identified in the county staff report in terms of their analysis that if they do pull it out, there's a penalty actually that it gets applied to it unless it goes for certain reasons, like it's being given to a city to preserve an area, so there are some exceptions to that, but generally if you're going to pull it out of the process, there are additional taxes and penalties that are applied.
Yeah, I think it's anytime during the 10-year period, you have to pay your back taxes the whole time.
And there's like a 20% penalty, I believe.
And a penalty. So during that 10 years, it's stiff.
So you're making a commitment.
You're making a commitment. What's unclear to me is after 10 years. So let's say year 11, they don't have to go back and pay those 10 years.
No, I think they could either reapply to continue it on for another 10 years. So it's like you're buying it and you're doing it in segments of time.
Yeah. So you are making a 10-year commitment. Yeah. And you pay penalties. All right. Thank you.
Okay, sure. Councilmember Ferris.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Sure.
Thank you for your presentation. I understand both points. I understand that, we struggle for the balance between increasing our density and having affordable housing and trying to preserve some open space. We had a speaker tonight that talked about it. So I really get that. The thing about this law, which I really like, is that it has to go through Pierce County Council and Puyallup City Council so that, we see it if it fits for our community. And this property, looking at it, it's not my district, so I don't have a mental picture of it, but I'm glad you brought the view. This property has one of the oldest farmhouses in our community, because in District 1, we kind of had the farmers went went east. And navigation is not one of my skills. So it went east and went out that way. We don't have any of that kind of old infrastructure. And I think this is in District 2, is it not?
Yes.
Yeah, so I think that's kind of up that's gently sloping hill there. That's where that property is. And some of these farmhouses, and I have no idea. So I'm just cutting this out of whole cloth. So, but a lot of those farmhouses have been passed down through their families. If they're not using that property for development or for their personal use, then I think that this is a good benefit for them, is to be able to, $4,500 a year is a lot of green. And so I do support this, and I kind of like the process. I think the process is, whether you like it or not, whether you like the what's written here or doing it is not relevant. It's just, I like the process that each group has to kind of weigh in on some of these land use issues. So I will support the action tonight. And I think that's all I have to say about that.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Councilmember Dorr.
Thank you. Jeff, thanks so much for your presentation. And Councilmember Castema, the AWC Legislative Priority Committee is equally as frustrated as you are. But clearly that's not any of your action, Jeff. This I've been I've seen this issue before with Central Pierce. And for example, Mr. Van Lerup was able to use this for his property, and the board up there had accepted that, and he was able to pay less taxes to the fire district. So I wouldn't, I certainly don't want to incur the responsibility of not preserving farmland. We've heard enough from our community about how important that is. Anyway, so while I appreciate the concerns of my colleague, I will support this tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to comment on this. I also represent District 2 in relation to my two colleagues to my right. I've walked that district several times and know that property. That's a ravine. That's a valley. I just don't. Again, I'm not a developer, but I don't think it's developable at all. And even if you were to find a way to develop it, it would be so costly, it wouldn't be beneficial. So it is truly, it's a ravine. Like, I mean, that one, Councilor Casima, that one lot that they were talking about putting an apartment in across from Gravity Coffee and Les Schwab, that kind of little pit. Remember that one that you're talking about? This is probably 7 times deeper than that. And I think there's some body of water down there. So it's really not a piece of land that you're probably going to see development on. So I think preserving it for green space makes sense. Just knowing the property, not evaluating it professionally, because I'm not certainly saying that, but just, accessing common sense, it seems like it's a proper use of it. So anyway, without further ado, I might, Councilor Castima.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, yes, Deputy Mayor, I'm sorry. I'll grab you next, please. Deputy Mayor.
I just wanted to weigh in a little bit. Is it possible to pull up the attachment C in the agenda packet on this item? While we're waiting, just a little background. There's a attachment to the county documents that shows the property with some indication of what the geography of it.
I think that's the resource map designation.
Page 93 of the agenda, Amit.
That's very telling, isn't it? Where they can see the steep slopes, the critical areas, wetlands.
Deputy Mayor, you're muted.
The dark green is wetlands, so that's not going to be developable. Obviously, there's the river, but then those moderately steep slopes there would be somewhat problematic. So that one corner where the development has already taken place is good. There's a small section in the northwest corner, and then some areas of the southeast corner that how you get into those and so forth. So the whole parcel, both parcels seem to be pretty difficult to develop. So I think that may give Councilmember Castima a little bit more confidence that this isn't too bad a deal here. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councilor Castima?
Yes. I think this process is wrong. In other words, part of the process should be to determine whether or not they are buildable, to see, in fact, if you can do that. If you'll notice in this area, there are homes built in other areas that frankly, here we are on a council level making the kind of determination based on this map as to whether they're buildable, but there's been no buildable analysis. So I guess my point is this: if someone comes forward to the city of Puyallup or the county and says, I want this to remain open space, and we don't do an analysis on whether it's buildable or not, we have not done that analysis, then we really don't know what the trade-off is. And maybe at one time it was something we could do when there was a lot of developable land around and we had plenty of it. But obviously we don't, based on the fact that all single family home lots now are going to be subdivided, and those single family lots will each have at least one ADU on it, maybe even two ADUs. So we have like destroyed these other lot assessments that we've done out there. And in this one, we pretend that that's not a factor anymore by making armchair analysis by a council, when in fact that should be part of the process. If you want a tax exemption for an open space, we need to know whether it's developable, because in the 10, 20 years ago, it wasn't important. But clearly, with our growth development plan that we are trying to put together right now, that we're mandated to do, and what the state legislature has done, they have said all these other lots must change. And I think that is the new factor. So I'm not going to vote for this. I don't think the process is correct. I think that unless someone here can tell me that they're a developer and then they can look at that map and make that kind of professional assessment, I don't think we're doing justice and fairness to the people of Puyallup by saying we have to accept all of these guidelines of dividing lots, and yet someone can put their piece of property on a open space tax exemption status without going through the analysis of whether they're buildable or not. And I appreciate all of your analyses on this dais, but you're not professionals. And I think that this is in fact it's a process that, given the context of what happened in the session, is outdated. And I'm not going to put my pen to it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Council. Council, we have great discussion on this, and we have before us a resolution 5A. At this point, I'd like to entertain a motion to either approve or deny this.
Move to approve. Mr. Mayor, I will approve. Oh, go ahead. I'll take it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to consider approval or denial of 5A as presented before us. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 And those opposed, nay.
Nay.
Motion passes. Okay, Council, we're going to move on to other business. We have a city tourism project update. Public Officer Eric Johnson is going to introduce a representative from our consultant for some, I understand correctly, some opportunities for some added marketing or creativity, perhaps not only around the city, but perhaps in the chamber, I think.
Yes. So fun, creative project. So hi, Eric Johnson. I'm the City Public Affairs Officer, and I'm here to give you an update on the tourism project. So let me, this is actually, can we move to the start here? Yeah, there we go. Okay. All right, so today's agenda, we're going to give you just a brief background on this project and remind you of where we came from with this project, and also where we are with the project, and then give you a sneak peek of the tourism website that we've been working on, and then also give you some updated options on the council chambers brand installation. At the last update we gave you in June, we gave you some options that didn't quite hit the mark, so you gave us direction to come back with some new updated options. So we will have those for your consideration tonight, and then we'll open it up for questions and feedback. So just a brief background. So at the January 10th, 2023 City Council meeting, Rotator Creative, who I actually have Kendon Shaw here representing Rotator tonight, presented the final design recommendation for the new tourism brand, which you'll see here, which is Puyallup Always in Season. Council expressed tremendous support for the design and gave direction to staff to move ahead with the proposed design and also to come up with an implementation plan. So staff presented that implementation plan to council at a meeting in February. Council approved the plan, which is composed of 3 phases. And you also authorized $100,000 in ARPA funds for the project. We also provided you with an update in June of 2023 on the project progress. We presented some design options for the Chambers brand installation, and we will have those updated options for you to consider this evening. So just to talk a little bit about some of the things that we've been doing since we last updated you, phase 1, which we have recently mostly completed, included the downtown banner implementation. So those are the light pole banners that you've been seeing up and around downtown, and also the cross street banners. I have a couple of examples here. On the left is the example of some of the spring banners that were put up during the springtime. And then on the right are a couple examples of the summer banners that were put up during the summer season. And then we are just about getting ready to implement the fall banners. I actually was contacted by Public Works and we received those fall banners today. So we will start getting those up very, very soon. So here's just a couple examples of what you'll be seeing going up downtown very shortly. And then we're also working on the winter banners for the holiday season. So we are currently working on the final designs of those. Here's just a couple examples of what you'll be seeing, and those will go up around the holiday season. And then also during phase 1, we created a brand style guide. So if you can think of the brand style guide as like a rule book for how the brand is to be used, ways that it can be used, ways that it can't be used. And then we have also recently applied for trademark protection through the state of Washington. That application is pending, and once approved, we will start working with the city clerk's office and also our city attorney to create a special business license for businesses that want to use the brand for private commerce, such as making t-shirts, hats, and just using the brand in general. So we'll work out the inner details of what that will look like, and we'll provide you with an update on that later. So where we are right now, we are currently in phase 2, which is the tourism website and also the visitor guide. So we are currently working on the initial design of the website, which is purepuyallup.com. And before I show you this, to take a sneak peek of this, just keep in mind that this is just a working draft. It is still in the design phase, so we're still working out all the details of it. So what you see here, some of the things may change in the final version. With that, let's take a look. Okay. Can you all see that? Can they see that? Okay. There we go. Okay, can you all see that now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, so here is the current design of the homepage. So we have the brand front and center with a nice hero image right there in the back. We also have our main categories right here: things to do, food and drink, explore, events, and where to stay. If you scroll down here, we've got some just some nice welcoming verbiage. This is still in flux right now. We're still honing that in. So, but just from a design perspective, what you can see right here. And then right down below, really hitting upon the seasonality of the brand. So summertime in Puyallup will have kind of like a highlight right here of like an event or a thing that you can do. And this will change seasonally. So if you can imagine in the fall, we'll have the fall branding in this and also kind of a fall thing that you can do.
Can I just interject there? Just the council recently approved a new RFP for another farmers market. So I hope that both markets are identified in this and not just the traditional one we've had for many years. Is that correct on there? The Thursday night market and the Saturday market? Okay, just want to make sure.
Yeah, so make sure to include that in here. We just got a simple little weather app right there, and then just some more things to be considering. So shop the farmer's market, visit the splash pad, just some summer activities. So if you can imagine, for fall, we'll have kind of a similar set of activities and things that you can do. Same for the winter, same for the spring.
Good. I see you have concerts in the park. That was fantastic. That was a huge hit this last summer. Huge. I mean, literally, people coming in from not only the local area, but all over the region just to visit and eat here and drink here. And it's just fantastic for a downtown venue. It's fantastic.
Yeah. So Mayor Johnson, great point. So right here, we've got concerts in the park. So if you can imagine, you can highlight over here and then an image comes up and then you can click on it with more information
Great.
about the concerts.
Wonderful.
In the park.
Love it.
And then below, we've got some more links to the different spring, summer, fall, and winter activities that you can do. And then this is just basically those navigation buttons up at the top, just at the bottom right here. And then we also have some social media carousel. So some nice, fun, cool images that we can share from Instagram and other places just to generate buzz about the community as a place to visit. And then take you here to the things to do page. So this is a kind of an example of an interior page. So again, you got a nice hero image up at the top with some verbiage, some more verbiage that is yet to be finalized. And then here's just kind of some samples of featured things that you can do. It's got treat yourself to a spa day, tie the knot at the Pioneer Park Pavilion. And again, these can adapt and change accordingly based on the season. And again, summer activities, make a summer splash. And then if you can imagine, this is interactive, so you can scroll through different activities that you can do in the summer. Same thing with all the different seasons of the year. And then again, just more links to our spring, summer, fall, and winter things that you can do. And let's go back to the presentation.
While you're doing that, I just want to comment. I appreciate they include, I saw a picture of fishermen. And during fishing season, that those fishermen, the banks are down there a pack. And so, Puyallup draws in a lot of sportsmen who want to fish the Puyallup River. So it's fantastic to include it. Oftentimes that's missed, but it is annual.
And that's actually a great point. So what you'll see with the fall banners that are going to go out very soon, we'll have some fishing motifs included with that.
Yeah. That's great.
And let's go to the council chambers installation. So this was a council requested item as part of the implementation plan. So at the June update, council requested some new options. We didn't quite hit the mark that time, so we're hoping to hit the mark this time. So Rotator has 3 new options for you to consider this evening, and we're seeking feedback from you on which of those options you prefer. We've got option 1 right here, always in season Puyallup. It's kind of a different take, if you will, on the regular word mark for Puyallup always in season. Option 2, I know that council expressed a desire to perhaps have the Puyallup always in season brand up next to the city logo. So we have that option right there. And then option 3 is just the standard word mark of Puyallup always in season centered right there. So next steps, we're seeking direction from council on the preferred chambers installation options and then begin working on the fabrication and installation. We'll continue to implement phase 2, and then we will, of course, provide you with updates on the project as it progresses. And with that, I open it up to feedback and questions.
Excellent. Thank you.
And I also have Kendon here from Rotator. He's also available to answer questions as well.
Yeah, great. Before I open up, just a couple of questions. I noticed most of the designs came out were just kind of mid, which I'm not opposed to, but you have all this great little space in this top banner where you could stretch it out a little farther. Is there any, I know we were thinking camera and all that stuff on there, but is there any option to put something a little bit longer and broader? But we had this kind of sentence always in season where it's kind of coming out with some width on there and bigger print.
Yeah, it certainly as an option if that's what council would desire. I think what we heard last time was that council was kind of focusing more on in between the 2 monitors. But if that's what council has a desire for, we can certainly go back and create an option for that as well.
I'd sure love to see something on this whole, got this whole blank strip here. If you could take that same always in season and really stretch it out, enlarge it and lengthen it with some flowers and daffodils on the other side, it would kind of really give some decorum, almost a little artsy more than just graphic only. It's kind of sense of art. It seems like our city is kind of entering into this kind of artsy kind of culture. And so they have something that's a little bit more ornate across the top as kind of a banner,
Okay.
more of a banner than a center logo like a picture frame, but think of a banner. Just a thought. And again, I'm opening it up to my colleagues. I just had envisioned that and certainly want to put that out there, but certainly want to hear from the council on their thoughts. Yeah. So I'll move on to Councilmember Ferris. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Sure.
So Eric, a nice presentation. Is it Ken or Kent?
Ken.
It
Ken.
is neither one of those. Okay. Kendon.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm glad I asked. And because I did have one option to say really fast, but I thought I would go with the actual name. So I'm glad you came in late. I always hate to see our consultants sitting here through, debate on it. So, okay, I love it. Are you guys, Kendon, are you guys doing the website?
Yes, we are.
You are.
We are designing
So
and building.
are you working with our the people that we contract to do our own, here's Jeff.
Oh, so are you referring to Madcap? Is that what you're referring to?
I'm not sure the name. It's been a while since, but the
Yeah.
people who are
Yeah,
you
our project, this project is just this tourism website. So anything else with the city,
right?
anything else that's connected to the county and stuff, we are not a part of.
No. So, but yours is kind of plug and play, so you can plug your product into whatever we're using, and I don't need to know the name. I won't remember 5 minutes from now. So, okay.
Sure.
The thing about this, so you will populate like all, when it says, okay, concerts in the park.
Yeah.
You'll populate that with, or they'll be able to populate that with all the dates and the people who are going to be there and that sort of thing.
Yeah, there's a couple of things that it actually addresses kind of a larger question, and part of the conversation and the strategy of the website is trying to figure out kind of what do we need it to do? What's the purpose of it? Why would someone come here? What information might they get?
Right.
And so starting off with like kind of it needs to look great, needs to invite people, and it also needs to kind of show some examples of the types of things you can do, that you might do in Puyallup. And so having like there's maybe a spectrum maybe of having like just a nice billboard website that's just like Puyallup is beautiful, always in season, come, versus like something that's exhaustively informational.
Yeah.
And somewhere in between there to be like, what are we going to do with it? And so we have several examples in here of here's like ideas that you might have, and concerts in the park is one of those.
Right.
I don't recall off the top of my head how many there are throughout the summer season and stuff.
Let's just say there are 10.
If there's 10, so a good example of that could be we expand out that particular page to show, hey, look, here's our whole schedule across the whole summer,
that would be
versus some other ones are a little more evergreen, like the fair is going to kind of always be the fair. We'll say a little bit about it. Don't forget the fair is here, but we're really just going to send you over to the fair's website to find out more information specific to the fair.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense, actually.
Yeah.
But the fair could be expanded on a bit. Just
For sure.
to say, okay, then the rodeo is this weekend, and some of the bigger concerts. I mean, I know that they have to go to the fair website to purchase that and all that. But something that draws people in, like, okay, what's going on at the fair? If I get to Puyallup, and it redirects me to the fair website, bonus, So then that could be my sole source of it's kind of a point of contact between me and what's going on in Puyallup.
Right.
That's really what I want and most people are not nerds like me, would go, oh, I want to know the history of Puyallup. I mean, that's just not typically, people are busy. They want to go to one place. They want to say, okay, what's going on? And they can go and point it. So my feedback to you is to say, yes, give them enough to say, hey, come on, and we're going to redirect you. But this is what's happening.
Yeah.
And those are the things, I mean, people are going to look at, like yesterday, I'm hungry and I go, so the first thing I'm going to do is go to DoorDash. But what if I have Pure Puyallup and say, okay, well, what's going on in Puyallup? Is there something like, is there a food truck, or is there something that's probably not on DoorDash, things like that. But I do like your artwork. I really love the artwork a lot on the webpage that you've shown us. Like this Ferris wheel is just perfect. the other iconic thing at the fair, if you grew up here, are the swings. You know, I don't know about you guys, but that's one thing, the swings and the roller coaster. Yes. So those two things are the most iconic thing, the thing that we remember year after year, even though I probably only ridden the swings, you know, 3 times in my years on planet, you know what I'm saying? So, but I love it. So going to what the mayor was talking about, I loved the artwork you had for the dais. I thought that was really clever. I thought it, but I don't think that people will see it. I personally would love to see that artwork on the dais, even though I know that people won't see it, and have artwork up here. And so I'm usually the oddball in this group. I don't know if you notice, everyone else has, but I was thinking that artwork that was on the dais was going to come up here. So not a bad thing. But if I was to pick from these 3 options, which based on what you heard, these kind of what, so I like number 2. The thing I want to just admit to is after I said, oh, hey, you know, that's just a camera. I don't know if just for the PCTV people in the back room that are filming this right now, they said, you know, they kind of did a shutter. So hopefully you talked to them and you worked out what can be done with that camera. So
Yeah, and we've talked with IT and staff here, and that's stuff that all can be moved around. So
that's what I thought. I mean, just based on my IT background, it's such a it's an easy thing, but it's, you know, it's a hard spot because of where our dais. We can always move our dais too. I don't know why that hasn't. It's not like that's permanently installed there, but yeah. So I just wanted to make that mention. But as usual, I think that you are doing just a fantastic job. And sometime I hope you'll explain why your name is Rotator. I mean, it sounds like you're a helicopter person.
You know, it's good ideas come and go and the whole world moves around.
You just
stuff like
gotta
that.
rotate.
So,
Yeah. Okay.
Rotate. There you
Good
go.
enough. All
Instead,
right.
instead of pivot, rotate,
Get
right?
it, pivot. Yeah. Okay. Got it. Thank you very much.
Rotate.
Pen done.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Councilmember Dorr.
Thank you. Great presentation. I like it a lot. Eric, I have a question about the fall banner, because if this is what is going up, we just missed the fair. So is that, it seems unfortunate that we didn't put, if this is if this is going to go up after they've closed.
Yeah. So the fair has Oktoberfest and other events that are happening in the fall. You know, the reason why the banners were late is we had an issue with the vendor. Some of the banners were actually damaged from some faulty materials. So it was actually delayed by a few weeks. So we were hoping to get these implemented at the start of the fair. But unfortunately, we had an issue with the vendor, which we have resolved, and it's all good to go. But next year, we're going to try to get these up much earlier.
Okay, because like the Oktoberfest, this doesn't say Oktoberfest to me, but I like it. I just the timing, that seems odd.
Yeah.
So I think what is the interplay between the city's website and this website? So how are people going to find this one first, you know, from our website or vice versa?
That's a great question. So phase 3 is going to be the advertising campaign. So sending people to the website to learn more about why Puyallup is such a great place to visit. So phase 3, the advertising campaign. So basically we're working on the assets right now. And then phase 3, we're going to tell the world about these assets to come here and learn more about why this is a cool place to visit. So sending people to that main anchor point, which is the tourism website. And then, as Councilmember Ferris said, redirecting them to those other places.
But how does that interplay with the cityofpuyallup.org?
So those are going to be separate websites.
Right. But what I'm saying is we have a broad-based constituency that is used to that. I don't know if they're going to see that. I mean, so how do you connect? It seems like you should be able to link to this one from that one, or there should be some interplay there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's great. I'm still struggling with the logo in the chambers, but if out of these, I like option 2. It's balanced and not overbearing. So that's where I'm at, but I like the campaign. It's great. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to go ahead and just, because I was a little slow and I apologize, I'm going to go ahead and yield to my deputy mayor to go next. Deputy mayor, please.
Yeah, could you pull up the first of the three options?
Yeah.
I like this one. I think it's got a little bit of flair. I think Puyallup's got a little flair. You know, everything blocky, just it feels like Puyallup is kind of too straight laced for me. So that'd be my preference. And the other, and could you bring up the spring and the slide with the spring and fall colors?
Are you referring to the banners?
Correct, banners.
This one?
You know, that's right. I look at these and I look at the spring banners and, you know, there's vibrant colors and it, you know, I really like the vibrant colors. But then we go into the summer and we take out, you know, everything's beige as opposed to white. And it, you know, I kind of feel like it looks a little dingy. So I would prefer to keep to the brighter colors. And you know, you've got some pictures of some cherry tomatoes and things elsewhere in your presentation that have the bright red. And I'd like to see those bright colors in for our blueberries and cherries and strawberries or whatever as well. That's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Council, I will tee up. I have a possible compromise on our choices here to consider. I'll move on to Councilmember King.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to piggyback off of what Councilmember Dorr mentioned regarding the fair banner. I would advise to not put that up. I would probably wait till next year on that one, regardless. I would quickly design something that would be and fall in line with Oktoberfest, or dare I say pumpkin spice. Gosh, that's never ending. But I think it would be a good play on to be able to try to bring a little bit more of the October-ness into it rather than, oops, here's the fair banner.
Right. There is a host, sorry to interrupt. There is a host of other options as well, that we're only showing two there.
Fair enough.
But, you know, similar to when you walk around here, you see many different ones. We have several different designs. So, but definitely heard on the timing of the fair banners.
That's a relief to know. Because I do know that you guys have quite a few choices out there, but
yeah, and if I may, Councilmember King, one of the things that we did was sign a memorandum of understanding with the fair, and so they will actually have their Oktoberfest banners up during that same time as us with our fall banners. So they will have those specific banners up around the fair.
I would still ditch the Ferris wheel though until next year. That's my personal opinion, but and then question that I've never had answered yet is, I'm pretty sure that the council never discussed this, but where or how did purepuyallup.com come into play?
Yeah, so that was and that was a decision that staff made based on the URLs that were available to be purchased at the time. So we had made a determination that that was the most interesting URL at the time, and that was also the one that was available. So there are other URLs that had been purchased by other entities that just weren't available. So we figured that, you know, instead of saying something more generic like visit Puyallup or destination Puyallup, which tons and hundreds of DMOs have all over the country and the world, picking something unique that's a little bit different that was also available. That was the decision that was made.
Visit Puyallup wasn't available?
It was not available.
Interesting. As far as the council chamber installation graphic, I do like them all. My only comment would be I'd still prefer a wood color to kind of keep it toned with the color of the dais. However, I do have to give you huge kudos for changing out the star flower to an actual daffodil on the logo itself. Just a little pet peeve, but good job. I would, if option one were to come into play, I would probably make that a little bigger. And I know we even took tape measures at one point and looked at that, but that particular one, I'd kind of increase it to the panels on each side. So I'd probably go to 8 feet on that. And then probably a little bit bigger on the option 2, always in season, probably enlarging that if we go there. And probably the same. Option 3, I would probably make that size on option 2, and then option 3, I'd even go a little bit bigger on that. All in all, good job. Thank you so much, and great presentation.
Okay. Thank you. Councilmember Palmer, enlighten us.
Oh, glad to, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember King, I appreciate your detail and focus on this stuff. So good work there. Yeah, I love it. I love the campaign. I love the website. So excellent job. I support kind of the comments that others have made. I have too been reluctant to put the logo in the chambers. I kind of feel this is a professional government building. But if we're going to do it, I would prefer option 2 strongly, because it has the logo and it has the kind of that gravitas of a government building, but still has kind of the flair of our campaign. So option 2 is kind of a mix of that. And so I would be okay with that. So I think that looks good. I mean, I really love our seal. I just love it. And it's should be prominent in this building.
Yeah.
It actually isn't.
No.
And so and our seal is fantastic.
It is.
So I love both of them together is a great combo. So I like it.
Well, I'm excited to interject here because I'm hoping that maybe I could weave this together. I'd like to propose that we take that large seal and put it front and center between these two, and take the Puyallup Always in Season on the first slide, the one that Deputy Mayor said, and enlarge that to 8 feet across and go across that very top as kind of a banner, then have our seal right between the two screens, and then really get this kind of very clear government, but then also this really cool banner of kind of artsy Puyallup Always in Season. So that would be my thought, to see if we can see something like that, what that looks like, and then maybe give us another go at that once we can see that presentation and enlarge it. Yeah. Because I feel like it's competing. The seal is competing with Always in Season. It's like where your eye want to go, and the seal is so dominant that your eye goes there. So let that seal be front and center right here between the monitors, and then do a very large Puyallup Always in Season in that option 1. Just a thought. End of the day, we're going to do the city business no matter what's here. So Councilmember Ferris.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just had a couple of things based on comments. I didn't completely follow you. I could go with number 1 too. I thought number 1 had a the difference between 1 and 2 is that this looks festive to me. It looks uplifting.
1 does.
Number 1.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
I agree.
Number 1 does. I'm kind of thinking that if you said Always in Season with the daffodil, and then underneath it put the official logo, is that what we call it? The logo, the round thingy. Okay. City logo. Yeah. And so we could do that. So that gives you absolutely nothing definitive to go by. So, but I'm just saying all of your ideas are really good. I think the thing about this, and I agree with Deputy Mayor Whitting, the thing about this body is that it has always been so serious and tense. And only in the last year or so have we things have kind of loosened up, and it's more collegial. I think this logo gives me how we presented outward to our community, if that makes sense. I do, if you go to number 2 quickly, thank you, Ken, is that for me, Councilmember Dorr said, the, what did you call it? Balance, just a good word. The thing is that the Puyallup always in season is smaller than the logo. That should be, if you do it this way, that should be exactly equal. And I know you're just plugging and playing on this for, but I would like to have that kind of balance. But so I could go anywhere that anyone else went. The only other thing I wanted to say is if you could go back to those banners that Deputy Mayor Whitting mentioned. Yeah, that one. Yeah. And so Councilmember Dorr had mentioned to me earlier this year, she went to some sort of Main Street conference, which they have great ideas. And I think, Citizen Paul said, Wayfair, which I know you've done a lot of work with. In some of those conferences, they've had the cutest ideas for Wayfair. One city had little frogs, so something about their city had something connected with frogs. But they had these little brass frogs at the location where there was something interesting to see. So if they put some sort of brass frog that was near the fair or near Main Street or some of these other things, Meeker Mansion, some of those things where people can actually do a walking tour. And that would be good. That is an aside that it's nothing to do with this, but it just reminded me that Citizen Paul mentioned Wayfair. On these, is there possible, we are a Purple Heart City, and we do have several Medal of Honor. I want to say 6 Medal of Honor winners from the city. I don't believe that any of them are living, but is it possible that at some point we could into this is we do have events around and we have quite a large group of people that come to our Memorial Day and our Veterans Day and that sort of thing. Is there some sort of thing where we can put the face and name of some of our citizens during that veteran, some of those periods, Eric?
Are you referring to like Purple Heart, like signs that you see on the street that say we are a Purple Heart City and, it has names and memorials? Is that what you're referring to?
I think it could be just the logo of Purple Heart, the metal Purple Heart, or it could be a picture of, like, for example, our, I don't think he talks about this and he probably would be irritated that I am, but our county council member is a Purple Heart recipient. So one of the things that would be awesome is to have a picture of him with his Purple Heart, if he agreed. It could be, Andy Anderson has all the information, but a picture actually of the recipient. So let's say I had a Purple Heart, which I don't. You would have a big mug of Ferris, saying U.S. Navy, blah, 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 who cares? But for our county council member, maybe we can have his picture, his dates of service. He's an Iraq veteran. And, just honor him in that way. If you wanted to be, but honor some of our Medal of Honor winners. So I kind of an aside, if there is something that we could do that we needed more money, if we could bring that up at budget time. I know we don't have a lot to play with, but just, I don't know how expensive these are, but if that's something you could fold into kind of this whole thing to show, because tourism is about, what is Puyallup about? What is our heart about? Who are we? That's why people come to Puyallup. It's like, this is a great place. People love our farmers market. They also love that we cherish our veterans. You know what I'm
Exactly.
saying?
Exactly. Yeah, I can certainly speak to Ken Davies and our public works teams about
Okay.
maybe a potential sign and what that could look like and where
Yes.
and cost estimates and all of that. So
Yes, and how much time is the time devoted to putting all of that stuff up? Is it worth, so I appreciate that and if it's not, that's cool with me. I just wanted to bring it up.
Okay.
And I think that's all for me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember King, another round.
Yes, so you are just bound and determined to figure out how to put a kook sign out there, aren't you, Councilmember Palmer? Yes, I do agree that maybe we should consider just putting the seal up here. However, we did talk about possibly putting the always in season over here, and we can put it much larger, and it would keep the autonomy of the council and the seriousness, quote unquote, of our council here on the dais with just the seal in the center, and then have the marketing piece over here. We can just move the flags on either side of the always in season. We can enlarge the logo to 8 feet and make it much more appealing.
Yep.
And kind of have it as an accent wall over here while not disturbing the business over here. Business over here, party over there.
There you go. The party's on the side of the staff. The staff's are the party people over here. They're party people.
We got to liven, I can't talk tonight. Liven them up a little bit.
All
tonight,
right.
so.
There you go.
Councilmember King, that's a great idea, and we can certainly create some options for that.
Well,
To liven them up or to, no, I'm just kidding.
All of that.
Well, maybe Eric, you have some ideas and inspiration. Maybe come back with round 2 and some fine tuning. Maybe get some other things. I think you got some good ideas, and you can kind of take all of this herding of cats and then come back with something that might get us in the same pen.
Okay.
All right. Anything else, council, before we move on to our next items? All right. Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay. Hello.
Mayor,
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Deputy Mayor, I did it twice. I apologize.
no
Twice.
sweat.
All right.
I just wanted to jump on board with Councilmember King's suggestion. I like it. And I was thinking about those different options for the presentations, and I would characterize option 1 as being flare and option 2 as being square. So I'm definitely a flare kind of guy, and I think with our city attorney and his tie tonight, I think flare is definitely in order.
All right. The party side over there. Bring it on. Good. All right. Excellent. Short of any further discussion on this, thank you so much for that. We'll now move into the city manager's report.
Hey, apparently we need to liven up on this end of the dais. So I did have 4 cups of coffee today, but apparently it didn't play out well. Thank you. So a few items, council. First of all, I just wanted to, if you have your pen handy and if anybody is watching this online or later, I just want to give out some important dates of some community events coming up. And all of this will, of course, be on our website. But the College Appreciation Week community cleanup is Monday, October 2nd from 9 to 11. I announced this at the last meeting, but just as a reminder. So Pierce College will be at Bradley Lake Park from 9 to 11, and then Washington State University Extension campus will be at DeCourcy and Clarks Creek Park. So 9 to 11, October 2nd will be a community cleanup with both of those institutions at the respective parks, and the community is invited. Also, the Pierce College's formal event will be on October 4th from 4 to 7. That'll be an evening with Pierce College where you can go take tours of the campus, see art exhibits, music performances, and a very informative nursing lab demonstration. I've actually gone to see that. If you have not, it's really impressive. And then lastly is the tailgate event on October 7th. As Todd had mentioned earlier, the game time is at noon. So the tailgate event will start at 10 a.m. out on the campus there. And that's October 7th. Couple other just important dates, as council and the community knows, in November, there will be a bond measure on the ballot regarding our public safety building project. And so I just wanted to remind council members and others that you can go on our website. And if you put in just simply public safety building, there's a whole section of our website dedicated to that. You can take a tour of our public safety building, September 28th, September 30th, October 12th, October 21st, and October 24th. All of those dates are on our website, and they vary in times, recognizing some people can, need to go during the day, others are in the evening. So there's some at 9 a.m. and some are after typical work hours of 5:30 p.m. And then also the police department is hosting 4 different neighborhood meetings. The Northwest neighborhood will be on October 9th. Southwest neighborhood is October 18th. Southeast neighborhood is October 19th. The Northeast neighborhood is on October 25th. Again, go to our website. All of this information is there. So just as a reminder. Council, there's no regular meeting until towards the end of October, but you do have your budget study sessions that are coming up. It's scheduled for 3 nights, October 10th, 11th, and 12th. I really do think that you probably, like you did a couple years ago with the mid-biennium review, I think you can do it in 2 nights, quite frankly.
But city manager, if we wanted to go third night just for fun, we could.
If you'd like to go for fun.
Just for fun.
Yeah. You could. So it is scheduled for 3 nights, but I can tell you from staff's perspective, I think you can be done in 2 nights, but if you want to go for a third night, you can. So that's Tuesday, October 10th, and then Wednesday, October 11th. And what we'll be covering there is the finance director overview. I'll be talking a little bit about the general fund. Then council will be discussing the lodging tax advisory commission recommendations, community grant funding. And then night 2, that's night 1. And then night 2 will be the capital improvement budget. This is a mid-biennium review, so there, quite frankly, aren't a lot of changes, not a lot to discuss. This is just kind of a tune-up check-in for that. So I just wanted to provide that to you. And then lastly, just one thing I wanted to, if you don't mind, Mayor. So this past weekend, unfortunately, one of the city employees, Julie Nolan, who's our our title was police traffic support specialist. It was our traffic enforcement officer downtown, parking enforcement officer, passed away unexpectedly. A big loss to not only the city as a whole, but the community, also to the police department. And, she worked across many different departments, municipal court. She was in the police department, of course, but worked in the city with the city attorney's office, numerous departments, was a longtime city resident, and worked with the city for 27 years, started back in 1996. Before she was with the city, she worked very briefly at Timberland Savings Bank. And then before that, worked at O'Farrell's Restaurant on North Meridian, and was the assistant manager there for 10 years. And I just wanted to read something so on her questionnaire that she did when she applied for the job in 1996, she said, it was describing her work at O'Farrell's. And she said, I work daily with the customers, having a positive attitude and a smile, willing to do what I could to serve them. And I think anybody who worked with Julie, that would describe her to a T. Was just a fantastic human being, caring, loving person. And she gave some advice in her questionnaire that she answered. The question, I don't think we ask this anymore. We probably should. But the question was, please describe your experience dealing with difficult people. That was the question. And here's Julie's advice to all of us. My experience in dealing with difficult people is to stay calm, listen to them, and try to resolve the problem. Then she closes and says, but if the problem can't be resolved, you probably should consult your supervisor. So I thought that was some really good advice. And I just wanted to share a minute. I don't know if you have this. The police department, Chief Engel and his staff really did a great job putting this out. Her vehicle, and adorn it with flowers. What you can't see in that picture there is inside there's a little rubber ducky that has a little police hat on it. So she kind of adorned her work vehicle, and she will be sorely missed. She's survived by her mother, her son, and her brother. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, City Manager. Appreciate not just the announcement, but the way that you honored her. And it was so amazing that you brought out kind of some of her files and was able to reflect back as a young woman, and to hear her wisdom with high insight really tells the richness of her character, that person that she was. And that was really special. Thanks, Steve, for sharing that. That was a pleasant and honorable way to respect and honor her. Well, great. I'm going to turn it over right now to Councilmember Palmer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, that's a good tribute to Julie, and very sad that happened. Got a few things here tonight. Let me start off by thank you, Mr. Mayor, for our conversation around Puget Sound Energy. I remember at a session about solar, and Christine Hahn, I think it's the last how you pronounce it, from Puget Sound, actually reached out to both of us.
Oh, good.
From that conversation, and talked about the community solar program that the Puget Sound Energy has.
Oh, good.
And they would love to partner with us. And the program is we would look for an area that's like 20,000 square feet. And they install it, but they just partner, they pay for everything and they install it. And so it's a large solar grid, and the whole purpose of it is part of their energy supply. So it doesn't go to the particular building, it goes into the whole Puget Sound, feed, so to speak, for electricity. But the whole idea is just building up solar capacity across their grid. And so great opportunity for us to have a very large solar array, and it's a good, it's a good thing to do, and they cover the cost. So just wanted to highlight that, because I think that's something we should do. Next thing I want to mention, I mentioned the climate. We had our second Pierce County climate conversation on Friday here in this building. There's a fair amount of energy. We talked about EVs, EV chargers in particular. And there's been some analysis saying that we need to have 8,000 public EV charging stations, charging stations in Pierce County. Couple 100,000 personal ones. But we're going to have the next conversation is going to be in December 8th, and talking about a potential joint grant application for multiple jurisdictions here in Pierce County to go after the pollution reduction grants through the IRA, Inflation Reduction Act. And it really helps to partner with other locals, and it really makes sense for EV charging to do it collectively as an overall plan. And so huge opportunity there to move forward on EV charging stations. And we definitely need that to address, we talked about a little bit with our action plan, but those that live in multifamily, have a hard time accessing EV charging. And so how do we do that? Anyway, opportunity, more to come on that. The third thing I want to talk about is Clark's Creek. Ms. Prosick is absolutely right. We've been cutting this for 30 years to prevent flooding in Clark's Creek. And then I don't know, 8 years ago, 5 years ago, we moved to pulling it. And the goal was to hopefully, if you pulled it, that you would take the root out and you wouldn't have to cut it. Or you wouldn't have to pull out as much each year. It doesn't appear that has been successful. It's still as dense as it always has been. And we ran into the problem this year because pulling it drifts down the LDA and gets into the hatchery system. And that's why we couldn't do it this summer. So that's created the problem that we have today. And it ended up having to do this emergency cutting to try to fit this in October, which typically would have done in the summer. So anyway, that's some backdrop on that. The other thing is, we did try to do a pilot project to pull some of the sediment out with, kind of this vacuum thing. It didn't go anywhere. We had some issues with the permit. And so anyway, and that is a problem. There is this huge amount of sediment in that creek. And so you put this, sediment on there, I mean, literally 5-6 feet deep places, and then you have LD on top of that, and that's why it floods. But the problem is you can't just pull it out willy-nilly, because you have these steep banks on either side, and then that can fluff off and stuff. So I sent an email to Steve a couple months ago on this, but I do think we should hire a group. There's a group called the River Design Group that I'm aware of out of Oregon that does really good engineering design on streams. I think we need a good plan on how to remove the sediment, because I think we should, but we got to do it in a way that's smart. And so having some good people that know this stuff would be really helpful. So something to think about in our supplemental budget. Fourth thing I wanted to say, I was saddened to hear that we didn't get a grant that we went in for on Shaw Road. And these grants, partnerships matter. And we did not have a partnership with the county on Shaw Road, if you can believe that. They didn't step up. We asked them, but they didn't. So that's a little infuriating to me, because they're basically the contributor to the problem on Shaw Road, in terms of development down the South Hill. And so we need to fix that. They need to be a strong partner so we can get grant money for the Shaw Road project. And lastly, College Appreciation Day. I was jealous of Councilmember Ferris all night tonight because she had the Cougar logo on her computer. So I finally figured out how to get mine up there, which, by the way, is the coolest logo in college, the Cougar logo. So very proud about that. And the Cougs are the Pac-2 champions now, if you follow college football. Yeah, I think the events can be great. So go out there and enjoy the tailgate event and all the other events for College Appreciation. I will be at the game, so I will miss it, unfortunately. That's all for tonight. Thanks.
Excellent. Councilmember King.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A great tribute to Julie and her years of service here in our city. And I remember as a young boy walking over to a Farrell's with my dad and having her serve us. And so she will be deeply missed. And I still remember very vividly, not too long ago, actually last Friday, seeing her chalk my tires right outside City Hall. So last Friday. And so I do, and we'll cherish that last chalk, if you will. And so she will be deeply missed. With that said, that's all I have for tonight. And actually I don't. I got one other thing. I will talk about the Clarks Creek. I do agree with everything that Councilmember Palmer had mentioned in regards to figuring out the solution with the sediment, and something needs to be done. And so hopefully we can get that resolved quickly and efficiently and get those consultants on board. So count me in. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Dorr, please.
Thank you. I wasn't going to comment, but I do want to talk about Julie. She was a very bright, and by bright, I mean vibrant person. And I've had some constituent outreach, which has been interesting to me. how much she meant to them. And the best comment I had was, she gave me 2 tickets. She was awesome. And so how often do you hear that about someone? So I just want to offer my heartfelt condolences to the PPD family and also to her family. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Ferris.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Sure.
I'm actually just filled with gratitude today. But before I address that, I want to just say, I was in a lot of duty stations, and I was a commanding officer in Iceland. And there was someone, it was an Italian airman who accidentally backed into airplane prop. And they were just visiting Iceland, maybe doing refuel or something like that. And we filled the church. Our greater Iceland community filled the church. There had to be 1,000, 1,500 people that came for this Italian airman that passed away, and the family was overwhelmed. I tell that story to say this, is that the police are so much like the military in that every single day they put on their, accoutrement to, their gun, their badge, and every day when they kiss their spouses, they don't know if they're going to be back. And I feel akin to the police in that way. It's one of those things where unless you're part of that community, you don't really realize that every single person that works in that community, I'm sure the chief of police understands this very well, is that those people are family members, and those people, as a leader, you feel responsible for them because they're part of your family. And so to have someone die, either, by natural causes or whatever, it impacts the whole family. And I feel very strongly, this is part of my gratitude, the city of Puyallup is a family, and that this is somebody that's, maybe a distant relative for us sitting up here, but I only get parking tickets in Tacoma, so I don't know. But I'm sorry for your family and for your loss. And so that's all I want to say about that, because I will get emotional. And Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to say thank you today for having Steve explain about the LOD, that weed, or plant weed, because I think that former Mayor Hansen is in District 1, or he used to be in District 1. So it was so nice to have those people who took the time to come in to actually get an answer about something that I know Steve's been working on, because he told me about it last week, So thank you for doing that. And
Thanks for the idea.
Sometimes I wish we would do that a little bit more, because we all sitting up here go, it's already fixed. And I feel like I want to reach out to people. The one thing that Councilmember Palmer didn't say, or didn't hear, I should say, is that when they pull the weeds up, it creates kind of a lot of silt that becomes waterborne. And I think, Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, will you? But that silt actually gets on the salmon roe, which causes what? It causes them not to mature.
Yeah, I'm going out of my lane here a little bit. It's called turbidity that's caused. And yes, you are correct. And some of that silt can get through some of the filters and get in there.
Filters,
where the eggs are being harvested. That can happen.
And it can affect them not hatching. Is that correct?
Yes.
To your best of your knowledge, I know we're not professionals up here.
Gets into the hatch, into where they lay the egg.
Yes, gets into where they lay the eggs and that sort of thing. All night I didn't hear that part of it. I did sort of hear you go up to the line, Councilmember, but I think that's important because they did talk a lot about the silt. And so we didn't really address that. We really just addressed the weed, the ELO weed. Okay. Talked about that, gave him a hard time. And the solar, hey, super proud of Councilmember Palmer for you just going, breakneck in your lame duck area on this solar. This is fantastic news. And the EV chargers and that sort of thing. Absolutely brilliant. One thing I'd love to just add to your committee is that I did get up to the line of having some solar panels on my house. For some reason it fell through. It was during pandemic and, but if there was a way where we could partner, where like say as a citizen, I could go, and there was a partnership where I could get it on my house. Where, I understand you're talking about, and if that's part of your program, great, because I would love to know that I could go to the, what's our energy company?
PSC,
PSC?
Sun Energy.
PSC, thank you.
PSC. Yeah.
If I could go to PSC, and I know that the contractors that I'm hiring from PSC are, I'm not getting ripped off. And so that would be my only input. I want to just say a big thanks to our city manager for the fantastic job that he's doing, especially around, just fielding complaints, looking for areas. I can't go into specifics, just going into areas where we need help and spending a ton of time. You are truly an inspiration to me, and I will stop because I know that this makes you as uncomfortable as if I was talking about intimate, details of my life. So, but I did want to say that out loud because I'm feeling gratitude.
Love it.
Okay, that's it for me. Thank you. Did I go on long enough?
Oh, you're great.
I can go to
Perfect.
5.
It's perfect.
Okay, good.
Perfect. All right, Councilmember Castmo, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to talk about Julie Nolan. She was actually kind of important to me. About the time she came to the city, I became a state representative and I had up to 3 offices in my political career in downtown Puyallup. So she wrote me a lot of tickets. And I have to tell you, I really got to know her real well. In fact, at times, Councilmember Dorr mentioned this, I would thank her. Partly because she was somewhat of an inspiration to me. She was very steadfast and she persevered in her job. And I bet you if you went out there and you said, what are the professions that are the most stressful? You always hear about things like being a dentist, and I'm sure there are a number of other ones out there, but in there has got to be parking enforcement officers. You're out there writing tickets and people are disputing them all the time. They're trying to run to their car and take the ticket off, and they're probably begging you not to sign it and put it on their windshield. And I understood that, and I would watch her and see her almost, at least 3-4 times a week. And she just seemed to be above the kind of stress that I guess would be associated with that. And I just found that inspirational. I really did. And I would talk with her. And again, I would thank her. I'd say, hey, it was a great donation to the city. I have no problem with it. And next time you see my car doing that, feel free to ticket me. But it has me thinking about something that's even bigger than just that more personal relationship. And I was talking to a political consultant the other day, just more on a friendship basis. And he told me that, Puyallup is different. And I think many of us in Puyallup, we don't realize how different and unique we are in the Puget Sound area. But this has really retained itself as a real cohesive community. And whereas a lot of communities feel very fractured, they don't have downtowns, they're not managed that well, in my opinion. And Puyallup has been able to hold it together through all of that. And I think the worst mistake that people can make is to think that that is just by accident. And that's why I constantly tell people that this is not by accident that our city is operating the way that it is. And this city is the way that it is. It takes individuals, it takes leadership. It's all part of making Puyallup work, whether you're the city manager, whether you're the police chief, whether you're the volunteer for schools or your church or a service club, or you're the parking enforcement officer. All of it works together. You know, you could imagine what it would be like, you know, Julie goes around, she enforces that. Well, many communities, they have electronic meters, they meter everything. Okay, so it's all highly computerized, et cetera. Puyallup has not taken that course, but yet we still need to enforce our parking in downtown Puyallup because people need to rotate in and out. And Julie was able to make that happen to where really it was more personable. And, you know, wasn't as impersonal as you find in many cities. And she did a very good job and was very optimistic through the whole thing. So it takes all of these components making a community work. And I say goodbye, Julie, because I already miss her. This was really, it was unanticipated. She's young in my mind. It seems very, very young. And this was really, this was really tough. So thanks for the opportunity to say a few words. God bless her.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. Deputy Mayor, please.
Yeah, I'd just like to take a moment. You know, one of the challenges I face as a council member is communicating effectively with my constituents and getting a message out to our people. And I was completely floored this week by the number of people that I talked to that brought up Julie. And that news just spread like wildfire. And I just think that that's a testament to the kind of person she was and the hole she's going to leave. And we just need to figure out a way to bottle what she had and get more of it, because she made a difference in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Council and City Manager, for your comments. I'll conclude with my own comments and then we'll go into executive session. I too will, I was kind of listening to the tone as we reflect upon Julie. You know, I think as we think about that, part of us, I think kind of it's a sober moment, because really when you think about it, we're looking in the mirror. That's going to be us someday. No one escapes this, right? So we're kind of looking in the mirror. We're thinking, whoa, okay, that's going to be us someday. Now that shouldn't be gripped in fear, but I think it should be gripped in living a life well lived and making it count. She certainly seemed to live a life well and make it count. And I think that everybody has value. And I think that sometimes through human eyes, we look at various statures and positions and riches and all these things, and we attribute greater value to certain people. But I think in God's eyes, I think we all have equal value, no matter where we're at. And I apply that not only from my faith, but just from a practical standpoint. You know, having children, all of them are special, and some may attain certain things, a certain status, but at the end of the day, I love them equally. And so I think as we look at people and realize that we're all created kind of in his image and that we all have value and they shouldn't lean upon man's or mankind's value system, but we realize that everyone has value. And certainly I think she certainly amplified that. And City Manager, you know, reading that reflection of her wisdom and her character certainly said that she was a very special person. So I think the challenge for us as we look in the mirror is let's make our lives count. We still got time. We don't know how much, but we don't have to worry about it, but live it, make it count. Because as a dear friend and colleague says, which I'll probably won't forget for a long time, we're just passing through. And so let's make it count. That being said, we're going to shift into the council's now going to recess into executive session to consider the minimum price at which real estate may be offered for sale or lease, and to discuss with city attorneys litigation or potential litigation to which the city council or council member acting in official capacity is or likely to become a party. The executive session is expected to last, they said 2 hours. I'm going to say 1 hour. I'm feeling optimistic we'll do it 1 hour. So we are now recessed into executive session.
It is now 9:55 PM. Executive session will be extended another 15 minutes. The acting city clerk notes the time is 9:55 PM, 10:05 PM on Tuesday, September 26th, 2023. The regular meeting of the Puyallup City Council is now adjourned.